Okay, so we are facing a Sicilian defense today against quite a high-rated opponent, and I've played quite a few things over the years. I've played A3, the Mengarini. I've played D4 takes and C3, the Smith-Mora Gambit. I've played C3, the Alapin, and I've recently started playing Knight to F3 followed by C3, the delayed Alapin. I've been really enjoying this opening, to be fair, so we'll feature it today. Opponent goes knight to f6. I think we just push e5 to kick the knight out of f6. And then we achieve the goal of playing d4 with this massive pawn chain, which is one of the main ideas of the Alapin. And I'm just trying to remember, because I know there are some variations where you go bishop c4 and kind of try to gambit the c3 pawn. I think this is one of those positions. On bishop c4, knight b6, bishop b3, take, bishop e7. What's my compensation there? Oh, bishop f4, yes, stopping d5 or d6. I think that's the way to play. And the Alapin is often considered to be relatively unambitious, I would say. And in part, that is correct. Like, it is definitely not the most aggressive option against the Sicilian. But one of the things I really like about the Alapin is that it does get out of all of the really complicated theory, which I just don't want to have to memorize, as I know a lot of Sicilian players do memorize a lot of theory. And, you know, if you do play the bog standard knight f3 and d4 stuff, I mean, black can go for so many different things, like a6, d6, e6, knight f6, knight c6, pawn g6. There's probably other moves as well. But there's so many things that black can do, and you've got to have responses to every single one of them. Whereas in the Alapin, okay, yeah, the computer might not think it's the best variation ever, but you can already see my opponent on move 6 having a think. And I mean, that would never happen if we'd have played the open Sicilian, or like a Grand Prix attack maybe. My opponent will be blitzing out his moves. So I'm not saying that the Alapin is the greatest opening of all time ever, but I think it's a really good practical option. And I mean, you even see it at master levels sometimes, where it is a viable opening. And okay, knight b6, we'll drop our bishop back, and here we are offering black a pawn. Knight c6. Castles take, d5 take, queen takes, queen e2. Yeah, I think that's okay. Again, I'm offering up the pawn. But again, we have decent play after takes and takes. One of the main ideas is trying to exploit the d6 square, or it can be. But other than that, we have good kingside attacking chances, particularly with building up some kind of battery. If black quickly pushes a move like d6 or d5, we can slide the queen over and bring the rook to d1. And if you play the Smith-Mora, that will look very familiar to you, right? Like I said, I used to play the Smith-Mora years ago, and maybe I'll give it another go at some point. But again, with that, people tend to be quite booked up. Okay, we do see d6. And here, I think we just take. And point being that if black takes, which he does, just checking we can't go for knight takes. Queen takes, knight takes. No, I don't think that's good. So let's take back with the d-pawn. And here I think we have quite a comfortable position, to be honest. Like, black can go for the queen trade, but he will put our rook on the d-file immediately, which I'll be very happy with. And black is probably going to have issues trying to develop his light-squared bishop because of this pawn on e6. And the knight on b6 is stopping black from playing b6 and bishop to b7 or to a6. Of course, he can move his knight to a square like d5, and he could do that immediately if he really wants to, but that would mean that he's played knight f6, knight d5, knight b6, knight d5. That's what, 5 knight moves in the first 11 moves of the game. That seems a bit wrong. Although it's probably okay. And, you know, the game continues. If black does something like bishop to e7, we could trade queens, but knight to c3 probably is easiest. Just developing the knight. And this knight looks like it could be quite powerful on a square like e4. monitoring particularly c5 and d6. And if we put a bishop on e3, maybe a rook on c1, we could have a really good grip of this c5 square, which could be quite fruitful. And again, the fact that my opponent is taking so long here is a really good sign to me that we've got him out of any known theory, which, considering he's a 2300 rated player, he's going to have a decent amount of theory. I also don't think my opponent can actually go queen c7, which seems like the obvious way to avoid the queen trade. I mean, perhaps knight c3 he can take on e5? Maybe? He does trade the queens. But I thought that he might experience issues with the knight coming to b5 and the queen being vulnerable on c7 and us maybe getting into d6 alongside bishop f4 type stuff. But this, I think, is a roaring success of an opening. I mean, yes, the queens have been traded, and that's not to everyone's taste to trade the queens so early, but I don't think I'm particularly fussed. Okay, pawn a5, chasing my bishop. Interesting. I don't really want to play a4 and give him the b4 square for his pieces. That seems very wrong to me. We could go a3, and if a4, drop the bishop back to a2 to stay on the long diagonal. We could also drop back to c2 if we want. We could counterattack his knight with bishop to e3, and he can't put the knight on d5 because we control that square twice, and he only controls it once, so we would win a pawn. If pawn a4, bishop takes b6, pawn takes b3, we cannot recapture because our rook will be hanging. Although if we can get this knight to move, we will have checkmate on d8. I don't really see how we make the knight move, though. If bishop e3, pawn a4, we could go bishop takes e6 as a desperado. And after bishop takes and bishop takes, we're up a pawn. We do give away the bishop pair. Do I want to do that? I don't know. We are up a pawn, though. Bishop e3, pawn a4. It's interesting, but I'm not entirely sure. Take, take, take. Black plays. What does black play? I feel like black has good activity, though. I'm not really sure about going for that line. I think our light squared bishop is pretty decent. What if I go knight c3? a4, bishop c2. No, I don't think that quite looks right. I feel like a3 makes the most sense. Because I'm trying to play against this knight, I think. I think I want to keep my bishop on this diagonal, stopping the knight from coming into the game like this. Because my pawns are monitoring the dark squares pretty well. They're doing a good job of that, so I feel like my bishop should be monitoring these light squares. Particularly c4. I don't really want to allow a knight into c4. Okay, bishop to c5, stopping bishop to e3. That makes a lot of sense. Knight c3 looks like a no-brainer. Preparing some knight e4 to kick the bishop. Also, just furthering our control over d5. Maybe knight b5 is an option. I'm really liking this. Really, really liking this. I think black struggles here. Knight e4 can come with tempo, forcing the bishop back to e7. And then we can go bishop e3 with tempo, probably forcing the knight back to d7. Does have good attack on e4. So here, 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 here. How do I continue? Not sure. I'm not sure if I can gain more of a grip over d5. I could go bishop g5. But then his bishop can still return because the knight controls this square. I'm not sure coming into c7 is that impressive. The rook can just slide over. Maybe here, I actually don't go bishop e3. Maybe that's the way to play. I think that makes sense. After bishop e7, bishop e3 seems to help to improve the knight by attacking e5. So actually, I feel like I should just do something else. Maybe knight d6. Maybe knight d6 makes sense. Although I do... oh, wait. Maybe bishop f4. Just preemptively defending. f6 is going to be a hard move to make, considering the diagonal is going to be very weak. Yeah, bishop f4 looks very viable. Bishop here, knight here. I can't use c5. Trying to figure out if I can move this knight and go f4, but I don't think so. Bishop here. If the bishop comes to d7, then I can drop back and attack the knight, because the knight is going to be overloaded. So I'm going to go bishop f4. Perhaps we will go knight d6. He does go a4. I would assume probably going for this sort of thing. Okay, we'll go to a2. Maybe knight a5, knight c4. But if knight a5, just rook c1, and we are completely dominant. This is starting to look like a crushing advantage. By the way, if you're enjoying the video so far, please drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. And yeah, black is just really struggling here. Bishop d7 just loses to bishop e3 by my calculation. I mean, knight d5 maybe. Take. Bishop e6. Yeah, maybe sacking a pawn can get black back into the game activity-wise, to be fair. That does make sense. So if bishop d7... I mean, I don't have to play bishop e3, though, do I? Okay, rook a5. Wow. Okay. Applying some more pressure. Makes sense. That's an interesting move. What if I just attack the rook? Gets forced back. Yeah, but I always have this in my back pocket, don't I? I don't need to commit to that yet. This knight is bad, but it's going here where it wants to go. I'm thinking rook a to c1. Is rook b5 a concern? Attacking b2? I mean, I'm going to assume rook c2 or rook d2 is fine. And then we can kick the rook away. Maybe my knight belongs back on c3. Interesting. This would be nice, but doesn't quite work anyway. What else can we do? My bishop is well placed. This knight looks well placed, I think. This knight needs to defend. This bishop needs to defend. This rook is well placed. So I'm thinking we just get this rook in. But is this a big deal? Should I try and double on the d file? Like rook d2, rook a to d1? I mean, knight c4 can't be played. That looks viable. Just doubling. Maybe I prepare knight d6 in the future. I'm going to go for that. I'm going to go for that. I like the look of that. My opponent may go knight to d5 with the support of the rook. I'm also taking away the possibility of bishop d2. I didn't actually consider that. But if knight d5, bishop g3, I'm not too concerned, I don't think. Not too concerned. I mean, this knight has no moves. Knight has no moves. f6, again, I think is too weakening. Again, this diagonal is a problem. There's too many things on the diagonal. And also, you're going to lose the bishop, most likely. Like, if f6 bishop takes, I will grab that bishop. Because I think it's one of black's best pieces. It's okay. My bishop on g3 I'm not thrilled about, but it's not the end of the world. I think I want to double and go for this. Taking will always allow e takes and let this bishop out, though. But maybe the threat of taking is all I need. Is just to have that there as a threat. Does b5, b4 make sense? Rook c1. Where does the knight go? Bishop b7 defending the knight? That doesn't look right. Also, knight c5 is interesting. Also, this knight won't be protected by the rook anymore if he goes for b5. So I'm not convinced. It is an interesting possibility, but I don't think it quite works. And obviously, knight d6 is on my radar constantly, because I know I can put the knight there, but I'm not sure I want my pawn there, because I think it might just get smothered by the black pieces. I don't think that possibility is, like, going anywhere for the time being, though. So I think this is alright. I think this is alright. Again, rook b5. Probably take knight c3. And then I take here with the knight, which looks crushing. Also, a4 is weak. Yeah, so rook b5 isn't going to work. If rook b5 take rook takes... maybe that's interesting. Take. Okay. Goes rook d8, though. Okay, sure. I'm just going to double up. I'm just going to quickly double up. I don't think this can be a bad idea, and I should justify my rook d2 anyway. So this is the justification. Also, rook b5 doesn't actually attack b2, does it? That was my whole point of rook d2, or part of it. So, yeah, I actually don't have to worry about that. I can also just go bishop c4 if I really want, and kick the rook back, because c5 is under control. So, yeah, that's no issue. That's no issue. This rook is defended pretty well. I don't think I'm going to be winning material, but I could force one of these pieces back if the d-file does open up, which doesn't look amazing for black. Question is, how do I start improving the position? Because all my pieces look ideally placed now. But how do I go forwards? Right? Well, let's say bishop d7. Again, I could just grab this. And the endgame should be better for me. I mean, it has to be. Has to be. So, okay, let's say b6 is played. Preparing bishop to b7. How do I continue there? Knight e6, I'm just not convinced by. He might actually have knight takes e5 as well. Because if knight takes, he takes here with check, and then after takes and takes, he's probably okay there, if not just winning. So I think I have to be careful. But b6, what do we do? What do we do on b6? Do we go rook c2? Or rook c1? Don't know. Doesn't quite look right, does it? Because he's going to defend the knight anyway. b6. No, knight c3 doesn't make sense. Knight d4? Do I want to trade this knight? I could go for like f4, bishop f2? Not sure. b6. This rook looks awkward, but I'm not really sure how to exploit that. Maybe I can try and get a knight to c4. Maybe this was a maneuver I should have been going for. Looking at this with both knights. Maybe the rook shouldn't have been on d2. Perhaps they should have been on c1 and d1, and then bring the knight around. Maybe. I don't think I'm convinced, though. I think this is just a complicated position. I think that's... I don't think there's any easy answers. So, okay, b6. b6, b6, b6. Can I allow bishop b7? I don't know. I feel like black's getting out there. Can I play like rook c1, bishop e7, rook dc2? And just go for the c file? Maybe? Maybe. Blocking it will be difficult. Because I'll be winning a pawn. And b5 is even harder. So b6, rook c2, bishop b7, rook d2, c1. The knight can't really move. I mean, you could go back to b8 if you really want. But then maybe I do hop the knight in. Or to c... No, I can't go to c5. I could then go knight d2, knight c4. Yeah? Yeah, that's true. That's true. It feels a bit wrong to double on the c file and then double on the... Sorry, double on the d file and then double on the c file. That feels wrong. Maybe it's pragmatic. I'm not sure about this structure either. I also give away the c5 square. My pawns are split. My bishop's out the game. That doesn't feel right. b6, knight d6. Again, I think there's knight e5. How do I go forwards? I mean, do I just not commit too much and push my h-pawn? That can't be right. Can't be right. I could play a move like h3 just to give my king some luft and let my opponent come up with an idea. Because he is taking a long time. So I could do that and kind of pass the turn back. But after h3, what is my next move? Do I want to move my f knight and play f4? Is that what I want? Where do I want to put the knight? Like b6, knight e1, bishop e7, pawn f4. It's still not simple, is it? But then again, what does black do to really come forwards? I could try and reposition my bishop on f2. I have to watch for f4 hanging, of course, but... Yeah, maybe that's an interesting idea. But then where do I want my f-knight? Where do I want it? Because e1 isn't impressive. Again, maybe d2. Although, wait a second. b6, rook c2, bishop b7, knight d2. Does this make sense? Knight c7. Opening up the d file. h5. h4 isn't... No, it is actually a threat. Ah, okay. Why want to go h4? It is weak. I don't really want to go h4, do I? Maybe it's fine. But I will have to leave my bishop here, I think, if I do that. Although even if I come back to f2, I'll still be controlling that. So, okay, let's go h4. Let's go h4. I feel like my opponent is struggling to come up with an idea as well. I mean, considering he spent almost half his time on that move. And I'm obviously trying to respond pretty quickly. Down to 2 minutes. It's getting into dangerous territory for him. And I do have a very good grip of the dart squares with my pawns. It is very nice in that regard. And my knights being on light squares also mean that they control the dart squares very nicely. Which I think are quite important in this position. Yeah, my opponent's getting lower and lower on the clock. It's not looking good for him. I don't think putting a knight on g5 makes any sense at all. I have no threats. f7 is not coming under attack. Seems like a complete waste to do that. Yeah, I think b6 I probably want to go for this plan and reroute the knight, play f4. I like the look of that. Really? Is he trying to do this? Or with this knight, maybe? I think he wants to use this knight. But then I can hop into d6. If here, here... I have no threat, though, really, do I? No. I don't think so. Okay. Does knight d4 make sense? Knight takes, rook takes, freeing up f4. It doesn't quite look correct to me. This knight doesn't have much for future anyway. Well, I guess it's coming this way, isn't it? If I come here and he comes here, then I go f4. Not sure I want to close off the d file, though, even temporarily. Taking looks ludicrous. Knight d6 looks ludicrous. Knight g5 makes no sense. Knight g3 is... no, not interesting. Not interesting. What do I do here? What do I do? What do I do? I want to put a knight on c4. I think that's a very obvious square. So I should move a rook to the c file to stop b5. It doesn't actually stop b5 though, does it? He just moves his knight first. But then, no, then I have knight d6. And he can't do this because of take. Okay, okay. This makes sense to me. However, can he get away with this? No. Okay, let's go rook c2. Let's go rook c2. I feel like I've misplaced my rooks this game, but you always misplace your rooks, to be fair. Like, I think it's like a common thing where it's like, if you have like a choice of how to position your rooks, like which files to put them on, how to stack them, that you'll always choose wrong, sort of thing. I mean, not in the least because it's hard to figure that out, but also because your opponent will just adapt, right? I think the key part of this is that no tactics work because this bishop always hangs if he goes after like this rook. So that's fine. Bishop d7. Sure. Sure. But now the d file is closed. That I'm not sure about. If knight d2, he can go b5. So maybe I should double stack first. But then if I do this, he can access d4. If I do this, he can access d4 immediately as well. So should it be this knight? Should be this knight to maneuver. Don't know about that. What about... no, I can't do that. Knight d6. No, I'm not convinced. Knight d4. I think he just comes back. Maybe I can hop in, but it doesn't quite feel correct. No, maybe it does. Hold on. If here, what if he trades though? Take. And goes rook c8. Again, I'm not convinced by that. If I slide my other rook to the c file, he can't go b5. He goes for this, I go for this. So rook d to c1. If he goes rook c8, he could have issues with his rook. Also, this will come with tempo. Also, I could go knight c5. All right, let's shift over. My opponent is down to 50 seconds as well, so that will play a big role, most likely. I don't think my opponent can go for this sort of stuff. Bishop e8. Didn't consider that move. It's interesting. I'm just not sure what it does. Okay, if this he comes here, I understand that. And he's eyeing up e2, which is a problem. Okay. Can I go rook c4? 4. Doesn't look right. Obviously, b5, I take the knight. Do I go knight d6 now? Take? I'm not sure what I gain, though. This bishop isn't impressive, is it? Okay. The problem is d4, isn't it? That's the problem. Maybe king f1. So if he does go for this, he has no knight e2. I feel like that's an improving move. And if a check here is ever given, I don't think it matters. Well, then maybe you could pin a knight on c4. Knight c5? Bishop c5, rook c5, rook c5, rook c5. Knight e7, trying to infiltrate with his rook on d8. No, that's annoying. I'm going to go king f1. I think my king maybe makes sense on e1. I'm also just wanting to play a move to see what he does, hoping he makes a bad decision. Again, something like this I think allows my knight in. I don't think he can do that. And b7 will be a problem. Bishop e7. Okay, well, he's moved his bishop back and forth, which can't be great. King e2? This could come with check. I think king e1. There's no threat here, is there? Let's just go king e1. Again, let's see what my opponent chooses to do. I just like the fact that I'm covering these well, namely d1, really. But covering the infiltrations. And f5. My opponent finally commits. I have to say I'm not impressed with it, though. And now let's think here. Because we could take on passant. We could. If knight takes, we take on e6. If bishop takes, knight takes, pawn takes. We've got to be careful he doesn't get e5 in. So I'm actually thinking that maybe we go knight g5. Is f4 the idea? Take, if take, rook d6. I don't think it works because of knight f4 and the knight is pinned. Maybe it is bishop f7 though. Interesting. I have to be very careful of f4, don't I? So if take pawn takes, let's say. It's interesting. It is interesting. Here, I think everything loses bar f4. I mean, my opponent could try bishop f7, I suppose. Yeah, I think I have to take. Because actually, f4 is a problem. My bishop's going to get cut off completely. Oh, wait, no, wait. No, it isn't. I could have taken here, maybe. I still think this is okay, though. I still think this is okay. Because I think black will struggle with his weak pawns. Alright, how do we proceed? I can't put a knight on g5. That's not a big issue. f5, f4 is not the end of the world. I can take the knight. And yeah, the point is if I take the knight and he takes my bishop, I always take on e6 with check. That was what I initially missed during my calculation. What about knight c5? Targeting e6 and b7. If bishop takes, rook takes, rook takes, rook takes. The whole point is now there's no infiltration on d1 because my king's on e1. So I think this makes a lot of sense. I like this. I like this. Also, this could be an idea if the knight moves. I don't think I can do this and this and this. I mean, for several reasons, but I don't think that's possible. Okay. So we've traded some pieces. My bishop is still very good. I have the bishop pair, which could come in handy. This bishop isn't amazing for now, but okay, king f7. Sure, sure, sure. How are you defending that? How are you defending that? There's no useful discoveries on my rook, because I just take. Rook d7. It's gotta be the way. That looks uncomfortable, though. Because everything... I mean, the bishop's just blocked in. I'm not sure how I increase the advantage, but... This? If this and this stopping knight e4, I can always come back and come to g5 now. I'm not sure how I get this knight to move out of the way. If I take, of course, rook takes, I take on b7. He can take with the pawn, though, and he has a passer. Wait, does this allow this knight in? With tempo, I think it might. Maybe... No, I can't do that. I'm not sure my bishop wants to go anywhere else. I don't know, maybe it does. Maybe it wants to do this. I feel like that makes sense. I can always get my rook out via c5 if it comes under fire. But this will never open up. I am taking the pressure off this diagonal, but I can always return. Okay, e5. e5. Alright. Can't go e4. I'm not sure bishop f5 helps. The knight is under attack, though, isn't it? Oh, yeah, no. He can't move. I might just be winning now. I might just be winning. I think his idea was to try e4 and kick my knight away from f3 and put his knight on d4. But now I think we're winning. Game is not over, but it's certainly looking good. Certainly looking good. Knight d4, you can't take, so take. Could just drop back and attack his knight. I'm not sure I want to take that, though. Maybe I just come here? Well, this is defended by the bishop, right? Does this maneuver make sense now? Because there's no knight d4 anymore. I'd say so. I'd say so. I also have knight e4. Is knight e4 more accurate? I don't think so. He has rook d8. I think I should just move. Yeah, let's just apply. Just keep the pressure. Just keep the pressure. I'm up a pawn. It's very hard for black to make moves. I obviously can't allow this, so I need to keep the pin. For now, anyway. These moves will come with tempo. Knight f4. Opening up his bishop and his rook. I mean, this pawn structure doesn't look good. My bishop sucks anyway, so I'm just going to take it. G2 is hanging. Okay, what happens after knight c5? Rook moves. Could go f3. Just keeping my pawns safe. Yeah, let's do that. I like that. Preparing bishop e4, probably. Looking for a bishop trade. And if we do trade the bishops, a4 will be weak. My opponent is certainly trying to make this hard for me. Bishop e5. Avoiding a trade. Stopping knight c4. Okay, what about knight e4? Rook c6, king d2. Gotta make sure my bishop doesn't get trapped, though. Could come back. Don't want to allow this, though. I need to make a move. I'm not sure this is correct. I'm really not sure. But I can always come back this way if I need to, I suppose. I feel like there should be tactics, but I don't see them. I'm going to come to h3. Not sure, but gotta make a decision. Knight c3, rook here. Covering e2. Bishop's under attack. Rook a5 is deadly. Rook a5 is deadly. Gotta move his bishop. Yep. I mean, it looks like I can just take this and be up 2 pawns. And now I can get the pawns rolling as well. This bishop is not a good piece, but it is defending g2, which is useful. Don't want to step up here and allow knight checks in the future. I don't have to worry so much about the rook getting in because g2's defended. Okay, trading is interesting. f4 is hanging. How are you defending that? You're not. I don't care if you check me. I don't care. Alright, let's maybe make this a bit harder. Still going to do it, though. Here, check. A move. Looks fine. Check, I move. That's fine. We're rolling the pawns. We're up 3 pawns. Black is running out of counterplay. I just need to try and keep my nerve now. Not get too nervous here. Okay, I think if here, I'm fine. Again, g2 is well defended. f5 is under pressure. F-pawn is pinned. Note that. Yep. Here, there's this. Wow. Sneaky. But if check here, check. I'm fine. I honestly think that's the easiest way to win this. I think this is the easiest way. Because I just have so many pawns. I'm up 4 pawns. I mean, I think this is the best way to do this. And then the bishop versus rook should be not too difficult. Okay. Let's go after this. Okay, I can't take because of this. Sure. Actually, let's just lock the rook out. Now this is a threat. No, it isn't. No, the rook can come here. No. Yeah, sorry, it is a threat. Of course it is. Yeah, so he does that. And we need to get g4 at some point, probably, to make a two front attack. Yep. Rook here. Bishop back. Take, push. Bishop back, king b8, king b6. Game over. If hg... No, this is game over now. Nothing to be done. Rook a2. Takes. I can cover my king up easily, but this rook has to monitor a7 at all times. If the king moves, I push a7 and I win. This is game. Wow. Yeah, you can do that, I suppose. There's no stalemate. Rook can't move off of the a file. And I'm just going to push my h-pawn and win. My bishop is protected. This king has moves, which is, of course, important because we do not want to stalemate in a completely winning position. And my opponent resigns. GG. Wow. Fascinating game. Let's jump into the analysis. Okay, so interesting game. We played at 86.9% accuracy. My opponent at 82.5%. Looks like we did make a mistake at one point, but my opponent didn't capitalize it. But let's have a look. So, like I said, the normal Alapin is c3. But I was watching a lecture by Ben Feingold. I've mentioned this in a previous video, where he basically says to start with knight f3, because you're going to put the knight on f3 no matter what, and your opponent might play something like a dragon or a6 or something that they wouldn't normally play against the Alapin. Because a lot of people, for example, against the Alapin will play d5. This is one of the main lines. But against knight f3, maybe they play knight to c6, and then after c3, maybe d5, they're not familiar with the knight being on c6 in this Alapin structure, right? So it's kind of, you can only gain. It might be the same if you go knight f3, but it might be better. So okay, c3, knight f6, e5, knight d5, d4 first, take, and bishop to c4. Here, if you're wondering why black doesn't take on c3, it's because I want to take, and if take, then I'll take here, and this is not good. So black would have to take on b2, and after take and castles, We're down 2 pawns, but we have a lot of counterplay. And we're going to win d5 anyway, realistically. Like, let's say knight to c6, knight to c3, bishop e7, knight d5. Engine already thinks we're winning after castles and just normal moves. I don't really understand why we're so winning here. Oh, but I guess, yeah, this is going to be a problem, right? So knight b6 anyway. By my opponent, we drop back, knight c6, castles, d6. And here the engine actually prefers that I take on d6. And if bishop takes, it wants me to go for this structure. I could also take here with the knight. And if knight takes, queen takes, I have this 3 versus 2. Which I think is what I would have probably preferred. Okay, this looks ludicrous. I don't really think people would play that. I think people would probably castle. And then the game goes on. Like knight d2, queen c7, knight f3. Maybe pawn e5 will be tried at some point to open the bishop up. But it's just an interesting position. But you avoid all of the main theory. But anyway, I take with the c-pawn. The engine doesn't love this. It thinks that black is okay here after queen d1. I thought queen c7 would be wrong because of knight c3. In fact, we're almost winning. So yes, queen d1, rook d1, a5 is a mistake. This didn't quite feel right. And so I went a3, which is inaccurate. The best move is bishop e3. So I saw a4. I'd seen this possibility of winning a pawn, but I actually thought that black had really good play here, despite being down a pawn. So I had seen take, knight c3, and I just didn't know how to evaluate this. Like bishop e7, engine suggests take, castles, and even here I don't quite see why. Okay, this can't. No, okay, no, I do understand it here actually. The bishop can't develop, the rook can't challenge me. This actually makes a lot of sense. Knight e4, fe5, knight fd2. Oh, we're going to c4. Yeah, like I wanted to in the game, actually. But okay, I went a3, bishop c5, knight c3, and here I felt like we were doing very well. The engine already wants knight d6. And if takes, e takes, I thought this pawn would be too weak. Bishop d7, take bishop e3. I suppose black is actually quite uncomfortable here. Then knight d2, knight d5, take, knight b3. And if bishop e6, knight c... Okay, sure. Interesting. I thought bishop f4 was viable, though. So a4, bishop a2, rook a5. I thought it was a very smart move, actually. Again, the engine likes this, but I went rook d2. Rook ac1 is also good. And I thought my opponent might go knight d5. Bishop d2, attacking the rook. Rook b5. If I have to go rook b1 or rook c2. Probably rook c2. Rook here, here. Yeah, this does feel a bit weird to me. But okay. Rook d2, knight d5. Bishop g3, rook d8. I thought we were doing all right. I mean, my opponent spent 7 minutes on the move h5. It's not a bad move, but it's hard to move here with black. The engine suggests knight b6, which to me looks strange. Going for this. And then... Sorry. Then I feel like I'm just better. I mean, knight d4 is a move. I'm not quite sure where the knight's going. Oh, to stop knight c6. And if knight c6, take, we just have a slightly better structure. Doesn't feel very human to play like that. My opponent went h5, of course. h4. Bishop f8 is a mistake. Engine really likes knight f to g5. No, it doesn't. Sorry, that's knight e to g5. Knight f to g5. Why? What does this do? Let's just say bishop d7 for the sake of argument. Oh, it is just to play f4. And then drop the bishop back, I think. Huh. Interesting. And the knight actually can't be kicked out. I just thought it was useless, but... Okay, rook c2 is okay. Bishop d7, rook dc1 is a mistake. Engine again wants knight fg5. Because I was basically thinking, okay, I'd love to do this and go for f5, but I thought this knight would come into d4. And I've got to find like knight c4, and I don't like it. But here, bishop e8, king f1 is a mistake. Knight d to b4. I didn't think that worked. I didn't think this worked. Oh, the bishop isn't hanging. Is that the issue? I think so. Hold on. Oh, because he has bishop b5 check. Ah, right. Okay, because I was basically calculating something like this, and I'm up a piece. But bishop b5 check gets him out. Right, so bishop e7 is a miss on that. King e1. He can again go for knight db4. Because the rook isn't hanging. But f5 played. And here, ef6 is a miss. So knight eg5 is good. And after bishop f7, knight h3. Okay. Interesting. The best move is knight d6. I don't quite get this. So take f4, and I mean, I'm just losing the d pawn. And the engine doesn't want me to play take and take. It wants to go rook d1, pinning the knight. And let's say rook d7, so I can't take, because after take and take, the bishop can take back. Knight g5 attacking. This is a very computer-esque line, I will say. If something like knight e8, d8 defending, sorry, rook c8, and I'm threatening take. Huh. We're in low time. ef6, gf6. Knight c5 is strong. Take. And here, black is fine, but I did feel like we had an advantage, practically speaking. Bishop e1 is a blunder. So b6. And knight c to e7. Okay. And my rook is just trapped, I guess. Because I don't have c5 anymore. The engine wants me to take. And I knew that if rook takes, I take here. So I expected e takes. Oh, and then use it as a shield to bring the king in. Ah, I didn't consider that. King e6. Okay, I'm not playing knight g1. What on earth is that? To get to f4? I think this is a dead draw, with the opposite colour bishops as well. But okay, e5. And here I am winning after bishop to a2. I thought he could just defend. What? What? Oh my god, knight d4? And the king moves and I take? Well, with the rook, probably. But sorry, what about if pawn takes? Knight g5. Oh, the same problem. I felt like there was something tactical. I just couldn't figure it out. Not with the time situation. Okay, rook d6. Rook b7. I'm in the driver's seat. Knight d2 is best. Very happy to find that. Rook a7 is strong. Take. F3 is good. Knight e4 is best. Bishop h3 is best. Very happy. And knight c3. King d2 is a bit wrong, but it's fine. And here, yeah, we just grab the pawn. And black is actually really, really struggling. We are going up way too much material here. And black did pose some threats, actually, with the knight and rook combo, keeping my bishop out the game. For example, in this position after check, if I go to a4, knight c3 and I lose. The knight is covering b5, right? So I have to come back, and then he actually just wins the exchange. Now, to be fair, I had basically just thought he had a repetition of some form. But that's not actually the idea. It's to win my rook. But king c4 is fine. King runs. I thought he might go knight to c7 check, in which case I was trying to figure out which move I should play. If here and check, I can just go for the same sacrifice I did in the game. In this case, it's even better, actually, because the king is completely cut off by my king and bishop, and my pawns will just march through. But king e5, rook d5 is actually the best move going for this endgame, because black has no counterplay. And his rook needs to constantly be monitoring Rook h2, bishop e4. If takes, I push, and you have no way of stopping the promotion. So, yeah, he has to keep his rook on the a file, and there's nothing black can do here. I will push and promote. So that was a fascinating game. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you want to see another game I played in the Alapin Sicilian, hopefully I'm showing you why I think it's a decent opening. Check out the video up here. And if you want to see the previous episodes of the Climb to 2400, playlist down there. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in one of those.